co-host Richie O'Leary. Some bad news coming out of the Schiano press conference today. Starting linebacker Mohamed Toure is out for the season with a torn ACL. Big blow to the team, just about a week out of opening day. We'll go over that. We'll talk the team captains, which were also named today, and we have a couple of other things that we want to talk about, including an update on the giveaway from Night and Day. But speaking of Night and Day, this podcast is once again presented to you by Night and Day Apparel. Beat the heat this summer with our hot one-of-a-kind products. With temperatures rising, there's no better time to refresh your wardrobe with cool and stylish summer essentials. Whether you're planning a beach getaway, a picnic in the park, or simply lounging in the yard, we've got you covered. Visit our website today and explore a full range of summer essentials from pool floats and spatulas to bathing suits and tank tops. If you use our promo code Rutgers Rivals, you can get 10% off your purchase, and you can use that as many times as you want. Shop now and keep shopping.
Some cool stuff this week.
They got another thing dropping tomorrow, or when? Thursday? Is it this week?
Yeah, I think it's Thursday. I believe it is the...
Is it the Why Not Us?
Predicting a historic season for Rutgers athletics.
Okay.
I'm kind of intrigued to see what that is. I'll just have to wait and see for Thursday. But you can get your blackout T-shirt now, official blackout T-shirt.
You can also get this one, which is my favorite one by them. It's a
there you go.
Pocket tee. It's got a big Rutgers logo on the back. It's like an old school postcard. You can see it.
I might be a little biased, but I think this one might be like my favorite, like easily.
Oh yeah, I figured you'd like that one the best. That's the night report.
A little biased.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this is the second time in the last 3 years that Mohamed Toure has torn his ACL. He did it in spring of 2022, missed the entire season. He was healthy last year and made a position change. So between, recovering from the injury and changing positions, I don't know how many people really thought he'd get back to the old Mohamed Toure, but sure enough, he did. I think he had his best season as a Scarlet Knight last year. And I think we were all expecting him to have the best season of his career. And unfortunately, the injury bug bit him. Talk about just the impact losing a guy like Mohamed Toure will have on this team so close to the season.
I mean, you mentioned it. He switched positions between defensive end / edge rusher / linebacker. He's kind of done it all. He was a Butkus Award nominee, watch list preseason, team captain 2 years in a row. So that means a lot when you're being voted on as the heavy favorite by the rest of your team 2 years in a row, but also comeback player of the year semifinalist last year. He had some really good numbers. I believe he finished top as a top sack leader 3 out of the past 4 years, something like that. He's just been he's been an all-around force for this defense, really. Honorable mention All Big Ten last year. Phil Steele actually put him fourth team. This is just a guy that's kind of been the force of this entire defense. Like anything you saw this entire defense last year, and anytime they talked about it, it was Mohamed Toure. He can attack the quarterback. He can drop back in coverage. He was getting picks. He can kind of do it all from side on the sideline. Like he was that guy. Like, and he was an under the radar recruit, 2-star New Jersey kid, under the radar, and just kind of blossomed into a really star-studded linebacker, one of the best among the Big Ten. Now losing him, it's not going to be easy to replace him, but the good thing is, and Schiano mentioned it today in his presser, that they do have some depth there. So kind of just wait and see where that goes.
Yeah, he led the team in 2020, 2021, and 2023 in sacks. So 3 years he's led the team in sacks. And last year he didn't even play an edge rusher. He played an off-ball linebacker. Yeah. He did line up on the line of scrimmage a handful of times. That's the thing I think we'll miss the most from Mohamed Toure this season. Just his versatility. He showed that he's a really good outside line, or he's a really good off the ball linebacker, but he was lining up in these like NASCAR pass rush packages. Yeah. He was lining up occasionally as an edge rusher. He just had the versatility of being able to excel at multiple positions on defense that I don't think will have that same versatility with anybody else in the linebacking group. So you lose kind of a bit of dimensionality, I guess you would call it, with him on the field. And also his leadership. He's been a captain now, which I guess we'll talk about in a little bit, 2 years in a row. So he's a guy that clearly has a following in the locker room. Everybody likes, and I know that the team is just absolutely gutted for him. Kyle Monungai had some quotes in Pat Laney's article from today, just talking about how devastated they are for him. I don't think you could really replace a guy like Turay. this short of a time period, given his experience, given his leadership status. But I do think that if you were going to lose any starter on the team, linebacker might be the position if you had to pick one, you'd pick linebacker. I think they are really deep there. I think they're really deep at receiver. I think receiver might be the other one I'd be thinking of. But
it's crazy to say that.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the potential players to replace Turay. I don't think there's a 1-for-1 replacement like I just went over. But who are some of the guys to watch this year who are going to get a lot more snaps in linebacker?
So if you listen to our podcast or you listen to any of Greg Schiano's pressers, the first scrimmage 2 weeks ago, and this is not related to Turay's ACL injury, but they held out Powell and Turay because of minor stuff. Well, I shouldn't say minor stuff for Powell. Powell's still recovering from an Achilles injury. That's pretty serious. But minor stuff for Turay at the time. And they started Daryl Jabome and Moses Walker at the linebacker spots. Now, they're still going to run a 2 linebacker set no matter what for the most part. Now, obviously, certain scenarios, certain schemes, you could see different things come out. But for the most part, it's going to be a 4-2-5. But those 2 were the ones that were filling in. Now, both of them can kind of play either position, whether it be filling in for Powell or filling in for Turay. It's going to be interesting because looking now, Daryl Jabome is a guy that was a last-minute grab from Canada, came up to a camp in summer, you might remember, and ended up sleeping in his car overnight for one of the football camps, and they offered him a scholarship.
That's such a crazy story.
Yeah. So it's insane. But and then not only did this kid not arrive till summertime, but he also played all 12 games as a freshman in 2022. Then he played 10 games as a sophomore in 2020 or 2023. And like he looked pretty good, like out there, whether it be practice, whether it be in the games, like he's not lost, and he just has the athletic skill set and the traits that you really love to see. He almost reminds me kind of more of Powell, I would say, than Turay, as he can drop back in coverage a little more. But we've seen him as like a stand-up linebacker on the edge as well. He can kind of do a little bit of everything, and it's freaky because this is a kid that no one knew about, no one had any idea who he was. And now he's one of your top 4 linebackers, top 3 linebackers. So it's either going to be him or Moses Walker. A lot of people know Moses Walker because of the recruiting profile, 4-star linebacker from Erasmus Hall, spurned Penn State in his commitment edit. And a lot of people thought he was going to Penn State at the time. I remember watching on my phone. I'm like, oh, shit, there we go. See the little lion logo drawing, and then it's like, boom, block R. I'm like, oh, shit.
Yep.
It's like, I didn't see that one coming, but yeah, I mean, he also played in 12 games last year. He also looks really good. Now, there was some talk that he had to learn more of the playbook a little bit, but everything I've been told this offseason, that he's basically fully grasped it, and he's right there in the mix. There's a reason that Greg mentioned him and Jabome in the same sentence the other day. Now, who fills in that role? It can kind of go either way. Personally, I think Moses kind of fits more of the mold of Turay if you kind of want to stick with that type of linebacker, whereas Jabome is a little bit better in pass coverage. But that's no knock on Walker's pass coverage game either. I think either one of them can kind of fit and fill that role. And you might even see both of them just keep flip-flopping. I mean, they do rotate linebackers occasionally, maybe not so super often, but I do think between with the fact that Turay's out, now you can kind of do that with that other role. And then Abram Wright's a third guy that we haven't really mentioned. I don't think he ends up starting. I think he might get some snaps now because you need a 4th linebacker in general. But if you remember, he had a pretty good pinstripe bowl game. Had a picked off. I don't even know what the quarterback's name was for Miami at the time, but
Jakari Brown.
There you go. Picked off Jakari Brown and looks pretty good in his role there. Had a pretty good game overall in the pinstripe bowl. So those are 3 other guys that are probably going to end up all kind of filling that void, as well as filling that 2 deep as well. Keep saying as well.
Yeah, last year it was a very tight 3-man rotation at linebacker with Deion Jennings, Tyreem Powell, and Mohamed Toure, and those guys basically didn't leave the field. If you look at the snaps of last year, there was only 3 linebackers that played more than 90 snaps all season. Mohamed Toure played 671. Deion Jennings played 693, and Tyreem Powell played 371. And the only reason he didn't play more is because he got hurt, and he also got ejected from the one game as well.
Bullshit.
So, yeah, if you look at the other guys, Daryl Jabome had 85 snaps. Moses Walker had 42. Jameer Wright Collins had 31. Like, there just wasn't a whole lot of guys who got time last year. And I think that might be why you saw a lot of backups playing in the second scrimmage at linebacker, especially. because they need those snaps. And it's a good thing that we're playing two relatively easy opponents before we get into the meat of the schedule, because somebody's going to have to step up this year. I don't know who's going to be, but I do think the depth is there that somebody will rise to the top. Is it going to be Moses Walker finally, realizing his potential? Because I think if you're talking about like who has the highest ceiling of anybody, it's certainly Moses Walker. Like, you look at a guy like Mohamed Toure, and he's one of like the more physically impressive players that I've seen at Rutgers in a while. And Moses Walker looks very similar in terms of just how much he's built himself up. But I mean, Daryl Jabome, like you said, he's an under the radar kind of recruit, but he started playing immediately. He was a guy who was on the two deep from basically day one. Abram Wright flashed last year. He was a guy who I know you were telling me that the staff was really high on from what they saw in practice and scrimmages. Then he goes and had a pretty nice bowl game. Him and Bo Mascow were like the two guys all season that you heard the most about who hadn't really gotten much playing time. But we're just gonna have to see. And I'm glad that you mentioned the whole because a bunch of people were like, Richie, I thought you said his injury wasn't serious, blah, blah, blah. It's like different injury. He got dinged up before the scrimmage. He sat on the scrimmage, and last week he tore his ACL during practice. Like, they're two entirely separate incidents. It's just they were both injuries. Yeah, that you got them there. They're both injuries, but they're not the same. So I just want to clarify that as well.
It sucks because they've been so healthy all camp, and they've honestly gotten away with it like a lot. Just because if you look, like everyone else around college football is it's one day and once a day. It's like, look at Texas. Texas is getting every running back injured.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, knock on wood, Rutgers has been relatively healthy minus the Turay situation. And I think you said it before, but out of all the rooms, this is one room with arguably the most depth on the team. So it's could be worse.
Yeah, I do want to kind of ask a question to you about injuries, because if anybody who watched the presser today, Greg just looks like somebody beat his dog to death before he got on the camera, and he's been so upbeat all through camp. And today was just like such a different vibe. And he was talking. The first question he was asked was about the offensive line, and he took about 10 seconds to really gather his thoughts. And he answered. He said, "Well, if we stay healthy, I think we'll take a step forward. But we've been really banged up all through camp, blah, blah, blah." Are you concerned about the general health of this team, or do you think he was maybe just feeling, the feelings very intensely about losing a guy like Mohamed Toure in the moment? Do you think that there's, some serious concerns about the general health of the team right now?
I mean, just to clarify, this because I've told you this, but Mohamed Toure's injury did not happen today. So it's not like Greg just came off the practice field 10 seconds later. It's like, yep, ACL, that was it. We knew it. No, you have to do tests and stuff. It's happened last week. But yeah, I think it's more so, especially with the offensive line, I think that second unit needs to really step up. I think he's pretty used to, you've heard him in some of the videos. Like, his starting lineup set basically for the starting five. He's not going to reveal who it is, but it sounds like he's pretty confident in those starting five. But that second unit needs to step up a little bit, and that's kind of why I feel like he paused. On top of that, I think it's the dog days of summer right now for this football team. Like, this is game week, technically. He said in the presser, like, this is technically their Wednesday practice, I guess, if you want to call it that. And then they'll do Thursday, Friday. They'll get a couple days off, and then they kick it back on Monday. And it's like, all right, game week, let's go, or Sunday, whatever it is. So I think it's just the dog days of summer. And then add in the fact that he has to break the news to everyone that Mohamed Toure is out for the year, one of his star players, linebacker, captain. Like, I think add all that in, and it's just more like sometimes guys just get dinged up here and there. Like, even if they have an injury, like, they're not going to, like, there's a lot of injuries that guys suffer and they keep playing. Like, they're not like even going to affect them for a game, but some of these guys are still dinged up at the end of the day. And it's the dog days of camp, and you're just trying to get through them healthy. And that's why it's like, it is a shame that this entire camp they've had Mohamed Toure healthy, and then the very end, something like this happens.
So he got hurt before the season, obviously. Mm-hmm. Could he take a medical red shirt and return next year if he wanted to?
Yeah, 100%. Now, here's the thing. It sounds like if the decision was made today, he would return. He has what, 7 months to decide or something like that. 6 months, maybe
Something
less than
like
that.
yeah.
If he had to make the decision today, it sounds like he would come back. Obviously, you don't have to make the decision today. If he left, I think he could still get picked up in like a undrafted free agent role, and I still think he could probably make a team if he's healthy enough. But if you want to be a draft pick, you probably come back for another year and use that medical red shirt and go from there. It's going to be interesting too, because I know I speculated with you off pod, but he's already 6'2", 240, and when you get knee injuries like this, you usually pack on a little bit of weight. And I'm trying to go back to his profiles and try to find one of his old profiles before his other injury to see what his weight gain difference was. Like in that offseason, what was it, the 22 offseason, I think he was?
Mm-hmm.
So 22, he went from 221 in 2020 to 235 in 2021, and then jumped to 240. So, yeah, I guess he probably just fluctuated around that 240 range. But usually gain a little bit of weight. And if he's going to be an edge rusher, can you move him to edge rusher full time? Like, it's not crazy because Aaron Lewis is probably gone. I think Wesley Bailey's got one more year out eligibility after this. I forget.
So he has another year, but I doubt he takes it.
Yeah, so I mean, it wouldn't be the craziest thing to bump him down, especially if like his fill-in is pretty damn good, whether it be Walker or Jabome. So it's like, it's not the crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong, like it's Mohamed Toure. You can do a lot with him, but maybe full-time edge rusher going forward. Who knows? But either way, I think right now, if I had to pick, he's going to come back.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, thoughts and prayers and everything go out to Turay and his family, because I can only imagine if I was in his shoes, how devastated I would be. Everything's leading up to this moment. You already have gone through this once and know how hard it is to recover from it. You've had it happen twice as well. Like, you know how big of a uphill he's got to climb right now.
Not easy.
So thoughts are out to him. The other main thing that Schiano covered in his presser today was he named the captains. So there's some familiar names, some multi-year captains on this list. Let's just go through the captains, and then we can kind of go over if we're surprised by any of these. Yeah. So the first one's Mohamed Toure, who was also a captain last year. Kyle Manungai, also a captain last year. And Joe Lusardi, also a captain last year. So we have 3 guys returning as captains in 2024. The other 3 captains are Ethan Kaliak-Menis, Robert Longerbeam, and Tyreen Powell. This shouldn't surprise anybody, but I feel like this is a year where they had so many seniors returning. I posted something on Twitter today, just a screenshot of like the Our Lads projected depth chart. And Our Lads is great if you ever want to see like some pretty up-to-date guesstimations on depth charts for college and pros. So that every single player had senior eligibility on our defense that they projected to be a starter. And maybe I jinxed everything today, and then Mohamed Toure got injured an hour later. So do any of these surprise you at all as who got named captain?
No. I mean, Greg kind of spoke about the one pseudo surprise, I should say. That'd be Ethan, because he's such a newcomer to the team, but the quarterback needs to be the leader of the team, so I shouldn't say it's super surprising to see his name up there, but it is pretty cool it means that his teammates all supported him and that they all kind of support him as QB1. I know I've seen some people on our message board specifically and talk about Johnny, and everyone loves the backup quarterback. I get it. But Ethan is leaps and bounds better than him. Ethan is QB1, and he's assuming that role not just on the field, but also off the field. Like he's mentioned it a couple times this offseason. I think it was at the beginning of camp, just about how much this room has kind of just bought into him, and not just the room, but the team in general. I think this is just it's going to go a long way this year for him just being a leader of this team, especially on the offensive side. But him, Manungai was last year, Turay was last year, Lusardi was last year. I think people see Lusardi's name and don't really talk about him enough, whether it be on special teams or even as a defensive back. He's played pretty well in fill-in spots, whether it be replacing Igwinosin in a nickel or playing safety at times. He's just been a really all-around walk-on, the prototypical walk-on for Greg Schiano, I should say. A guy that came out of nowhere. His backstory is really interesting. He was a UMass commit for a little bit, was set to sign with UMass. They basically pulled the rug out from under him and said, like, last minute, we offered too many kids, sorry. And ends up at Rutgers as a walk-on, and now is a two deep player. Dad did the same thing at Syracuse, which is really interesting. And his dad became a full-fledged starter at Syracuse in the 80s or 90s, I think it was. So, yeah, just really cool story there. But the rest is all kind of expected. Longer beams kind of leading that DB room. Turay and Powell, two linebackers is interesting. I guess you could say that. But it just goes to speak to their leadership roles.
Yeah, so many seniors on this team, and I don't think the sky is falling for anybody who thinks, why did I get my hopes up? Now the season's over. It's not. It's certainly not ideal, but like Richie said, every team is going to deal with something like this every single year. It's very rare to go through a season with the same starters game 1 as you do in game 12 or the bowl game or whatever the end of your season is. So, I mean, Rutgers dealt with it last year. This isn't going to be the last guy who gets hurt this year. This is football. This is what happens. It's unfortunate. Greg said the same thing. You don't want to see anybody ever get hurt. It's just kind of, unfortunately, a part of the game. So thoughts are out for Mohamed Toure and his family. But is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we head out of here today?
I mean, listen, in most years, like an injury like this for a Rutgers team, man, this is going to be devastating for the season. But this year specifically, there's so much depth on this team. And like we said before, linebacker might be the second deepest room on the team this year. And it's crazy. We're saying wide receiver might be number 1. It's just insane how much depth there is at these positions. I'm not even going to speculate on that one, actually. Taking that back. But I just think that they can kind of fill his role more than people think. Now, a lot of people haven't been able to can't see practice, obviously. But I think that they are going to have an easier time filling that role than people think. I think someone's going to step up, whether it be Jabome, whether it be Walker, whether it be both. Maybe Wright. Abram Wright steps up. No matter who it is, I really trust this coaching staff, and I think that all these players in their development, you're seeing it more and more. This is year 3 for Walker. This is year 3 for Jabome. Year 2 for Abram Wright, and you're seeing these guys take leaps in their development. So I think that this linebacker room is going to be perfectly fine. You also have Joe Harris-Simiak specifically working out with that room this year, which is helpful because now he can kind of focus solely on that instead of focusing. I think he was a Nichols coach last year, technically. So that definitely helps to have a legit position coach there as well. And I think this team will be just fine. I don't think anything really changes in terms of projections. Is this going to knock them out of the college football playoff talk that everyone's saying? No, I think it's still going to still be there probably, but I think that's also a little bit of a pipe dream. So that's pump the gas or pump the brakes on that one. Sorry, pump the gas.
Yeah, I agree. I know we've been talking about it as the ceiling outcome for the team, and maybe we've
which it is.
harped on it a little bit.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think
everything
we
has
focused,
to fall perfect.
I think we've just been the quintessential optimist throughout the offseason about where this team could go. Next week we're going to do our season predictions, and I still don't know what I'm going to say for win totals. I'm looking at the schedule every couple days, and I feel really good about this team. But we will have our official predictions for the season coming out on Wednesday of next week, so you'll be able to see that. We also have our night and day giveaway. We'll announce our winner when we do our predictions. You have to do 2 things to be eligible to win. We're going to have 3 prize winners. First thing is you have to follow Night and Day Apparel on Instagram. That's night.and.day.apparel. That is the handle. And that's a must. If you're not following them and you end up winning, you're going to get disqualified. So I hate to be a stickler about that, but that's part of the rules. And you also have to either leave a comment underneath the video below mentioning Night and Day Apparel or Night and Day Giveaway, or for 2 entries, if you write a review in Apple Podcasts mentioning Night and Day Giveaway, we'll give you a second entry into the contest.
Which shout out to you people, because there's been a lot of them. Yeah, no, you guys are great with that. It's the best way. It's the best combo we found of growing the show and also giving back to you guys. It's a simple gesture, but a lot of you guys do it when we do these contests. We really do appreciate it. So that's how you got to do it. We'll announce our winners next week. Hopefully we'll have some better news for you guys the next time we hop on. Yeah.
But there's no more scrimmages. We're entering game prep week, like Richie said. So hopefully we'll have some news for you soon. But if not, we'll have our full prediction show next week. But that's it. For me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.